The Toyota Highlander, it's the triathlete of SUVs. Hi, I'm Greg, your car angel, and in this video, I'm going to be going through all of the generations of the Highlander, highlighting some of the problem areas that it's had throughout the years, and I'll also be discussing why I think this car is one of the best vehicles ever built. It does everything, and it does it very well. Now, the Highlander debuted in 2001 as one of the earliest examples of a true crossover. Remember, 2001, there wasn't that much going on. Now, the Highlander was a car that filled the gap between the Toyota RAV4, which was a proven little car, but it lacked family size, and the 4Runner, which was much bigger, but that was built on a truck chassis. So they needed a vehicle that was big, but handled like a car. The first generation Highlanders were all built in Japan at the Toyota plant in Miyawaka. Now, I consider this era of Toyota production the high watermark of Toyota quality. Just go to sites like Auto Trader or Car Gurus and you'll see plenty of these Highlanders, especially the ones with the 6-cylinder, being sold with over 200,000 miles, still running strong and selling for good money. The first generation Highlander came in two engine types. You had the 2.4 4-cylinder, which had some problems, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later in this video. And it also came with the 3.0 V6. Now that is the engine of choice in the early Highlanders. I did a video on Lexus ES300, which had the 3.0 engine in it, and that car had 596,000 miles on the original engine, which is really incredible, but it's a testament to how tough those engines are. The 2.4 that I mentioned, that's the 2AZ FE engine from Toyota, and it found its way into the Scion, the Camry, the Matrix, the RAV4, and of course the Highlander. And the problem with that engine over time, that only shows up as the miles start piling up, is a heat dissipation problem, and it has to do with the head bolts getting stripped. This has become a pretty common problem in older 2AZ FE engines. So if you're going for one of the early generation Highlanders, just stick with the 3.0. That's a much better choice. Many people ask me whether their Highlanders have the timing belt or a timing chain. Now I have a complete list that I'll put here in a link, and I'll also put it in the description below. But basically all you have to know is that all Highlanders with the 4-cylinder engine in them have a timing chain, period. No exceptions. The timing belts showed up between 2001 to 2007 in the 6-cylinder. And 2008 and after were all chains. There was one exception to that, and that's the Highlander Hybrid, which in 2006 to 2010 had a belt. And the reason that that exception happened was because that 3.3 engine was retained in the hybrid model all the way up to 2010, whereas the non-hybrid models in 2008 got the 3.5 engine. If you're going for a Highlander with that 3.3 engine in it, you're going to have to know about one thing, and it happens at 100,000 miles, and that is replacing the spark plugs. Now, you'd think that replacing spark plugs would be fairly straightforward on any car, but in the Highlander with the 3.3 engine in it, it is not so easy. It's the back 3 cylinders that are next to the firewall just crammed in there, and in order to access that, whoever is going to be doing your spark plug replacement has to lift the plenum off. It's not an easy fix. Just know if you're looking for that 3.3 Highlander, then make sure that either it's had the spark plugs replaced, or if not, that you factor that into your purchase price. If you're looking at a 2004 to 2007, you definitely want to go with the 3.3 with the better 5-speed transmission. Now, during the first generation of the Highlander run, Toyota introduced the hybrid. That was 2006. That hybrid system only had one problem, and it was a major problem, and that was the inverter. Now, there was a recall for all Highlanders between 2006 to 2011 about that inverter. Now, that inverter had a faulty transistor in it, and the recall involved replacing what was known as the intelligent power module, which I guess wasn't so intelligent after all. But that was the problem with the hybrid Highlander. Like any hybrid, you have to watch out when it starts to rack up miles, and I'm talking above 150,000, and you have the potential for battery failure and some of the other hybrid drivetrain parts. The reason that you have to watch out for this is because it is very expensive to replace these components. So as a side note, I would always avoid buying a used hybrid with very high miles for that reason. The second generation, which ran between 2008 and 2013, brought many changes to the Highlander lineup. Vehicle stability control became standard across all models, and in 2008 the 2.4 engine was replaced with the 2.7 engine. This gave the four-cylinder a significant bump in horsepower without sacrificing any gas mileage. Of the second generation, there were very few problems. The only thing that I can really hone in on is, for instance, this. Now you'll see that these small rock chips have become more like craters over time, and this will just keep growing and growing and growing until you actually have to get the front hood repainted. I don't know whether it was a problem with the paint or the clear coat or the primer, but you do have a problem here, and I see it on a lot of my Highlander inspections. Otherwise, this second generation Highlander is just built like a tank. I mean, nothing can harm this vehicle. This is an all-wheel drive model. I've taken this off-road, I've taken it into piles of snow, I've taken it everywhere, and it just never fails. I tow with it. It does everything really, really well. And if you get the Highlander hybrid, by the way, then you're picking up the economy that this one lacks. That's probably one of the other things that I really am down on about this car. I only get about 18 miles a gallon average. That's absolutely horrible. You get the hybrid model, you can up that to maybe 27, 28 miles per gallon, which is a sizable difference. The only reason for really getting the XLE or the limited package beyond having the 6-cylinder was mostly for the leather interior, the really nice JBL stereo system, and the larger 19-inch wheels. Now, even though the third row seat configuration makes the Highlander one of the best family cars you can buy, it does have one limitation, and that's in the usable space behind the third row seat. So you can see when it's in the up position, you can barely get anything other than maybe a couple of carry-ons to fit in here. However, when the second and third row seats are down, you can see just how much space you have back in this area. The build quality on the Highlander interiors is rugged and long-lasting. No matter if you get the leather interior or you get the fabric interior, I find that they last a long time. The only fault that I actually see on Highlanders on a regular basis is very small. It's a small complaint, and it's about this little spring that doesn't really last a long time on the cover of your charging outlet. And a small thing indeed when you look at everything else and how long it lasts. The second generation had more cup holders, which were on the inside, but actually there was a couple on the outside as well, which is very unusual. As you can see, the front headlights were redesigned and came with an interesting ledge that seconds as a perfect cup holder. The third generation Highlander, which ran between the years 2014 to 2019, featured more of everything. It had more power, it had more efficiency from the engine, it had more legroom, it had more legroom for the little kiddies in the third row seat, which was now standard. Also standard, high definition radio and Bluetooth. In 2017, Toyota had a major mid-cycle refresh for the third generation Highlander, and basically it was more efficient with the 8-speed transmission and more safety with the Toyota Safety Sense package. It also brought a lot of new rivals to compete against the Highlander, including the Nissan Pathfinder, the Ford Explorer, the Buick Enclave, the Chevy Traverse, the Dodge Durango, and the Volkswagen Atlas. All of these cars, in my opinion, are inferior to the Toyota Highlander. The only cars that I feel can compete would be maybe the Honda Pilot and maybe the Subaru Outback. For 2020, the 4th generation Highlander is being built on the new TNGA platform, which is short for the Toyota New Global Architecture platform. And that's sort of a one-size-fits-all overall engineering improvement for all Toyota models. Now, what it really does is it brings in better visibility. It carries over the Toyota Safety Sense package from the previous generation, of course, but it also brings in a dramatic increase in stability, a stronger cabin, and a more rigid body. The final thing that the TNGA platform is boasting is a lower center of gravity, which is always key to a higher profile vehicle such as the Toyota Highlander. The Toyota Highlander continues its dominance with reliability, its resale value, and its build quality. So I'm Greg, your car angel. Thanks so much for watching this video on the Toyota Highlander. If you enjoyed this video, take time to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.